And we are live. Podcast number 10. Well, first of all, we want to wish everybody a happy new year, 2021. 2020, pretty crazy year for the Western society. And later in this podcast, we're going to go over New Year's resolutions or New Year's goals, what our thoughts is on making new goals in the new year. But first, we have to continue with the topic we've left off last podcast, which was commenting on YouTube, Instagram, just social media in general. Mostly the negative people that are commenting. So we're going to go through that topic. So what are your thoughts on that?
I'm going to start too by saying Happy New Year, everyone, and appreciate anyone that's been listening. So
2 people, let's go. Woo.
Let's go. We got 2. We're going to make it 3, right?
Yeah.
So, oh God, I could say so much about this topic, but I think first and foremost, man, like these negative comments, like I try to focus on where they come from. You know what I mean? And like, why do people seem to only comment like the negative feelings and not positive? You know, I think that's like the most curious thing about the internet. Like I just see it so often. I'm like, it's like a cesspool of negativity, usually. You know what I mean?
Yeah. And I get the feeling it's the extreme side of the spectrum. So people that are in the middle are not going to comment. When people are engaging or like a particular video, they see it, they take it in, and then they move on to the next post. But if someone really gets aggravated by a post, then they're like getting angry and they want to comment on that. So the people that are in the middle, which is probably 98% of them, are not going to respond. And then there's that 2% that really gets annoyed or angry. And that's the one those are the people that are going to respond to the post often in a negative way.
Yeah, to me, it's like, I know like we all kind of get outraged when there's things that challenge our belief systems, but at least for me and in my experience in how I handle these things is usually when I see something that I don't like, I just move on right away because I know like what that does to my mind. It makes me like, first of all, get like super obsessive about trying to change how this person feels about whatever subject it is. And you know, why do I feel like I need to change their opinion? That doesn't make any sense. So that's like my first conclusion of like why I need to move on. And then second is like the stress and problems it causes inside of us. You know what I mean? Like it's definitely very unhealthy to constantly get outraged and feel negative about people challenging your belief, you know, and opinion.
Yeah, and I used to be like that when I was younger. I would get lost in the argument or discussion on the web as well. And I especially see it with the younger people. So if you compare platforms, I don't see it too much on YouTube. Of course, there are discussion, but it's pretty mellow. And it's also just funny comments and then people bringing their perspective. But when you go to TikTok with the younger generation, there's no filter. There is no filter.
Yeah, I see the exact same thing. And like, why, you know, at least for the young mind. And I could peel back and go back into my past and say the same thing to myself. Like, why do we have to prove our point? Why are we so adamant about like proving other people wrong? That part of it, like, what I'm trying to get at is like, if you're this person, try to understand why you're doing this. And then when you realize like this is hurting me, it's not helping me in any manner, I'm sitting here trying to fight a cause that is never going to get won, you'll let it go. You know, and that to me, like, it's the best thing anybody could do for their self. Like if you're running around trying to prove your own truth, like you're going to torture yourself and never ever get a chance to prove it.
Because there's always one person on the internet that's going to disagree. So even if you have 99 people agreeing with you, they're not going to comment. There's one person that says no, and then getting lost in this whole debate, which makes no sense because you're not even listening. Or the 2 people that are debating on the internet, it's like just, you know, slamming their point of view down your throat. It's not really like a discussion when you have face to face or in a podcast where you're sitting down and taking your time to talk through it instead of just saying, no, this is the way it is.
Yeah, I think that's the other dangerous part about the internet, right? You get to say what you want to say and then walk away from it. And like no one gets to rebuttal and there's no understanding. So like why even try, first of all, in the internet? Discussions and especially debates need to be done like face to face or on the phone or, you know, so
exactly.
you can talk about it.
Because online there is no face, so you can be anonymous, just saying bullcrap and disappear.
Yeah, and you could just walk away from it, and you don't have to deal with the consequences. It's a lot harder to argue with someone when they're face to face, and you get to see the emotion in them. And you know what I mean? Like you got to think quicker, and you got to be involved. If you're just typing and then walking away like that, there is zero impact for either party.
Exactly, and it's okay to disagree. That's fine. I'm not saying you have to agree with everyone, but it's more the form on how you communicate that towards the other person. So I was scrolling through Instagram. I don't know if it was by Joe Dispenza or someone else, but someone was disagreeing. Okay, I'm gonna head back a bit. Joe Dispenza was saying, I don't know if you know his theory, but that you, with your mind, you can solve inflammation or disease in your body. It's basically the same thing that Wim Hof says, right? That through our mind, through thinking, we can activate diseases or suppress them. And then someone was commenting with, well, but isn't he neglecting like medicines? Like we know that works as well. And then somebody was disagreeing, so explaining like, no, he's not disagreeing with the Western society. They're not contradicting. They can live next to each other. And this was this really subtle disagreement, and they were explaining, and everything was good. And then I don't know who it was, but someone famous commented, wow, this was a good way to solve an argument on the internet. So that was an example of how it should be done. So you can disagree, but just have respect. Don't call names. Don't do weird stuff. Just get to the point with having respect.
Yeah, absolutely. You could walk away, agree to disagree as well. And I like to use this analogy, man. I use it all the time. But like me, for example, I'm gonna go to food. I hate curry. Like it's like just makes me cringe. It's so disgusting to me. And when I went vegan, my wife and I went to Indian restaurant, and it's just full of curry. You could smell it and everything. Like right when I walked in, I could smell it, and I'm like, oh God, I can't do this. And so I'm kind of like thinking to myself when we're sitting in the restaurant, all this hit me, man. I'm like looking around, I'm like, all these people love it, like literally love it, like it's their favorite food, but I hate it. And I'm like trying to like compute where's my disconnect here? And all I could think of is like, that's awesome that they like that, and I hate this. And there's nothing I could do to make me like that. But it made me think to myself that there's a beauty in the fact that someone loves what I hate. And that's awesome. That's crazy to me to think that somebody could love like something that I cannot stomach, and I think that like is such an important analogy, at least for my mind, on a disagreeing, or like at least coming to something that you may hate versus someone loves it. It's not a matter of me trying to prove like why that tastes bad. Now I just understand that there's people out there that think different from me, and there's this deep beauty in this, man. That this person is entirely different from me. Now I'm interested, and I'm like, well, so what makes that taste good to you? And I start to get curious. Opens my mind.
Curious.
Curious. No pun intended. I like that. I love that.
And you don't have
do you
to
like
fight
curry?
over. Yeah, I do.
Okay.
But it's always funny when somebody asks me why don't you like a certain food. I'm like, I don't know. That's just how my tongue works. How do you mean? How do I not like that? Like what the hell?
That's why I like food as the analogy, because like there's zero explanation, and you can't explain it. But like we're indifferent for a reason. And there's no explanation there, but there's a beauty in it. And so I just appreciate it. I appreciate the opposite side of me. The things that I don't like, they're all over the place in the world, and these people like it. So to me, it's just like, it makes me more open-minded and curious when I think like this.
And it gets tricky with science, though, with the subjective manner, like taste, of course. But when it comes down to research, it gets tricky sometimes.
Yeah, like I love looking at studies and I love science. Like I believe in it wholeheartedly, but there's times of me where I think about Wim Hof a lot, and he's always said this thing, and he's like, how can you tell me how I feel? And I think that like science could explain some of that stuff, but some of it you just can't, man. Like we can't tell a person how they feel or why they feel that way. Like that's still a mystery to us, is it not?
It is. And I love this phrase as well. The moment you cannot prove it doesn't mean it isn't there. It was the same with the Wim Hof method. They basically said, well, there's no proof for what you're saying, so it must not be true. So the absence of evidence is not the evidence of absence.
Yeah, I love that. Love that saying, man. And really, like, I think that that's like a big thing that all of us kind of depend on is evidence and science and facts and all of these things. And you don't need them all the time. You don't need them.
True.
Sometimes we just have a truth inside us, and that's okay. I say this often too about meditation, and Wim Hof would fall under this, but like that's deeply personal. It's for us. You know what I mean? And so there's times that like even with foods or like certain emotions, or if we feel a way about something, it's deeply personal to you. You don't have to explain why you feel that way, and you don't have to prove why you feel that way. Like just keep it to yourself. You know, I do
True.
this a lot.
And it gets tricky as well with the things we haven't studied yet. So the scientific consensus is that everything that exists is antimatter or black matter or something that's not materialistic. 75% of our existence. But we have never researched that. So that's what Nikola Tesla said, way back in the day. If we, in the upcoming 10 years, would study the anti-materia, we would get further in science than we have then done over the last decades.
So they haven't studied any of that? Is that what you're saying?
Well, of course, we're looking into the cosmos and the universe, but there's so little we still understand. Like, we don't know how to research that. So we just kind of don't, and focus only on the materia and everything that's here.
Yeah, I listened to a thing on like black holes the other day, and it just like
it's mind-blowing. By the way,
really is.
Normally your face is white because of your screen, so just checking if your video is recording.
We're good. I think
Nice.
I think what happened, sorry folks, I'm going to probably have to readjust my lights, but I did some remodeling in the studio. I put some clouds is what we call them, like sound panels on the ceiling, like dark. I think that's what happened. I can see it now.
Your room became the black hole.
Yep, it's a black hole.
But to get
usually
back,
I have all the lights down.
Okay, but to get back on the topic with commenting, it's also good to understand from the other end to not engage with people that are hating on your post. You just have to understand this is the 1% of the people that's going to comment. Just let it go instead of getting involved, because it's really tricky to then get annoyed as well, having that feeling to comment and to make your point, but just gotta let that go as well. So if you see that people are commenting, first of all, don't be the person that comments annoying stuff, first of all. But if you see that's happening as well, just don't engage. Or if you engage, only with a positive way. Don't fight fire with fire.
Yeah. Yeah. Be the bigger person, move on. Actually, like it's the simple laws for all humans. If you ask me, we should all apply this to our life, but treat people how you want to be treated. It's as simple as that. Like you wouldn't want someone jumping on your post, commenting some negative stuff that it doesn't, it's not even necessary. It's not going to do any good at all. So you wouldn't want that. Don't do that to somebody else. So it's basically that.
It's pretty simple. So
very.
Just don't get annoyed by it and just let it go. Don't engage them. Then it's all good.
It's the best thing we could do for any of us. Like I was thinking about people that like even on the street, man, like or at work, and they say something to you you don't like. If you practice it on the internet to just move on and not comment, you might be able to start doing that in real life, and then you can move on. And this person's opinion didn't affect you, and you don't care anymore. And guess what? Now you're starting to control your emotions. And when this happens, your life really starts to blossom, because the facts is your emotions and that initial reaction, your response system is jacked up because you're getting triggered by some sort of insecurity or emotion inside of you, and you have not learned to deal with it yet. And this is going to torture you all your life. I assure you, it's going to hurt you for your entire life until you figure it out. And like I know that it held me back when I was running around with my emotions on my sleeve and did not control them at all, had like zero control over them. They got me in a lot of trouble, and through with the law and with, financial life, personal life, everything, family members. So when you learn to control your reactions, especially emotional reactions, life gets so much better.
I have a good example of this because I discovered the Wim Hof breathing through school, actually. So we had a class and we went and did the Wim Hof breathing. But some person in the room was breathing so loud, it was kind of hilarious, like really extreme. But one person really got annoyed by that. He was like, I couldn't focus because he was breathing so loud. And then we were discussing, like, is that because of the person that was breathing really loud? Or was that you being annoyed by it? Because the other people in the room were getting annoyed by it. So if you just control that emotion and when it doesn't affect you or it doesn't bother you, then you're good to go.
Yeah, like that person should have took it as a lesson. I do that a lot, man. Like if I have something that's like triggering me, I'm like, ah, this is a lesson. This is something I get to work on. I'm getting a lesson right now. Like I got to learn to deal with this. I don't get to just go shut that person up because they're annoying me. Like I'm sure you do. Like I'd be doing things that annoy them, right? They don't get to come over and tell me to stop. So, like I think about that a lot. I'm like, you just got to sort through that in your head. That shouldn't annoy you. Like there's something wrong there. Yep.
I agree. So moving on through the New Year's resolutions. So this is my perspective on it. I'm really curious what you think. I think, of course, it's good to go into a fresh year and restart some stuff, or maybe you want to start playing guitar, or you have a routine you want to change. That's always good. But what I do think though is don't get dependent on only changing uh, in the 1st of January, because happens a lot is when people don't make it or don't change their routine, they're like, okay, I will do it next year. So then you have 11 months of doing nothing instead of doing it now. If you want to change, why not do it now? Why wait until tomorrow? So it's always 1st of the month, I'm going to do that. And then they don't. And okay, I'm going to wait until next month. So if you get too much depending on that whole period, it's going to start dragging instead of being able to change right now. So I have this balance of course, it's good to change something up. But if you're depending on the time frames of each year, and you're not going to make it, you're going to be fucked, basically.
Yeah. And you're so right. Like people do this a lot, right? They'll set the 1 or 2 goals or whatever it is, and then not follow through. When in reality, like it should have been like that. Those 2 goals should have, or at least this is how I do it. Like I'll create like 1 or 2 goals that like I want to change about myself, and then throughout the year, man, I'm like new goals, like almost every week. You know, I got like lists. I got right here. I do it all the time. Lists. I keep lists, like constant lists. Like every day, I'm doing these things, and like if you're not doing things like that, like and you're keeping your goals in your head, like you're going to forget about them. Especially if you're just doing the one in the beginning of the year, like it's not important to you. You know what I mean? Like that's probably why you're failing.
Yeah, and it should come from within you and not because the calendar says so. You feel when you need to change and not something external. Yesterday there was something on the TV which was really funny. They were talking about weight loss and diet. And I heard all these methods and I was like, these are all tricks. They were saying, put a mirror in your kitchen. So when you go cooking, it's more likely to eat healthy because you're faced with yourself, literally. Or, I don't know, all these kinds of weird rules, which can be good maybe for the short term. But if you're not motivated from within you, maybe that's going to help for a week and then you're going to go back to your normal routine. So instead of looking for tricks, you should change from within. Really decide, okay, why am I doing this? What's the reason why I want to have a more healthy diet instead of putting up tricks and just, not reflecting of your goals and what you want to achieve.
It's really good stuff right there, man. Because I know the dangers in like going out there searching for the hacks and the tricks to apply to your life. Like it's not coming from within you. And like that's the true art of changing yourself. Is like you've got to want it from within. Like it's got to come deep inside you. Like people will say it to me a lot, like, how do you stay dedicated in the gym? I'm like, that's not even a question in my head. It's because I want it bad. It's from within. There's no question in my head ever. Like there's no hacks. There's like I'm in it because it's my heart. So definitely, if you're setting goals and you're trying to change your life, come from the heart. It's got to come from within. Like you could take tools from gurus or people online that you like. And if they're in your realm and your field and what you want to do, yes, take advice from these people. But like, if it's not coming from the heart, it ain't never going to work.
You made me realize this with motivation versus discipline. I never understood it until you explained it. Like, if you need music to go to the gym to get, going, to get a good workout in, if that music is gone and you're not able to do the workout, well, then you have to rely on your discipline. And if that's not there, you're not going to be able to do the workout. So same with the kitchen. If you hang up a mirror, well, what if your mirror breaks and you come in the kitchen the next day and you start eating that again? Then it's not coming from within.
Exactly. And I do this a lot, man. Like I'll take those tools away from myself. I have to do it. Like this is how you develop solid discipline. Like I can't operate on motivation. I'm not motivated all the time. I'm rarely motivated. Like discipline has got to override every morning. And I don't think I had one we'll say in the past 3 months, I did not have one morning I woke up where I'm like, I can't wait to work out. Every morning it's like, I want to sit here and just sleep still, but discipline's like, nope, don't have time for that, and that's because like I would take all of those things that I relied on as my motivation to get me going, take them away from myself and still go. And this just like built something different in my head. I override.
Exactly. It's the same with the pandemic, the fact that the gyms are closed is no excuse to get fat or not fit. That's motivation as well. If you have the discipline to keep working out at home or outside, then you're going to smash it for a month and you can just wait until the gym reopens. But if you only rely on your trainer or the surroundings in your gym and those are gone, well, then you won't be able to motivate yourself anymore and you're probably not going. So
it's funny, man. Because like since the pandemic hit, I had to build a gym in my house, and I had a person come in, and they've been following me for a while now, and they're like, "I wish I had like the space to build a gym that you have." Or they said something to me like that, and I said, I just replied back to him that like it's in my heart, I would figure it out anyways. Like I'd be hanging on a tree doing pull-ups, man. Like, trust me, like the space isn't your problem. It's your lack of discipline and your lack of wanting to do it. Like I assure you, you could put me anywhere. I'm going to figure it out. I don't care where I go.
And that's the cool thing, that about you, that you're going to go anyway, like no matter what, no matter the circumstances. I know from within what I want to do. So you can throw a challenge on me, but I'm going to be fine.
Yeah, that's why when you said that the goals have to come from within, man, like I relate to that completely. That is like so spot on. That like if you don't do this, like you're probably going to end up not getting to your goal.
So true. And with the trick thing, I realized that with my ceremony in Belgium, my intention was to figure out why I had fear in relationships and all that stuff. And then someone said about I'm having trouble living in the now. I'm always thinking I'm always asking the question, what if? And I was like, I have the same thing. I always have what if. So how am I going to be in the now? And then it happened. But the next day I was asking, like, how do I get to be in the now more often? So I literally asked that question, like, how do I do that? And then one said, you're looking for a trick. I was like, you're right. I'm looking for an answer. It's like that you count to 10 and then it happens. No, there's something from within you need to solve. So I was like, fuck the tricks from that on. And that made me realize with other stuff as well, just like with the mirror in the kitchen, like those are all tricks to get there for a short term, but instead of reflecting and go deep,
Right. Yeah. To even get into more detail about that, like, it comes from within. I'm going to go back to that because like you're looking for a trick. But in reality, there's the reason why you're not in the now is because you're thinking about something that's taking you out of the now. So that's your problem. There is no trick to fixing that problem. You just got to find what is keeping you out of the now, and then you start to beat that habit. There's going to be it's going to be a slow, methodical, work of you just one day at a time. Can't think like that anymore. Can't think like that, and you're going to keep making the mistake until you get better at it. But there is no overnight trick to just like, I'm in the now. I'm in the now. You know what I'm saying? Like it just doesn't work that way. It's got to come from within, and then you got to build on that and get good at it.
Exactly. It's just a practice. And we start a podcast off with arguments on the internet, and there's something we disagree on. So I would like to pick your brain on it because maybe it's me a lack of understanding. But you always say this phrase: "People don't change, but time changes." But for me, it doesn't hit home yet. So maybe you could explain it a bit more.
I'm going to try to find like a good example of. So like my examples are so broad and like I can't really think of like something like that would be super specific, but I talk about Confucius Time a lot, and this is where I could confuse a lot of people if you're not aware of it. But Confucius is an ancient philosopher from China. He basically shaped and molded the entire society to think of a certain mindset. They basically became Stoics. They killed the ego. They lived with compassion and love. I'll go over something briefly that they did was amazing, but I believe it was from the years of 1400 to 1600. They used to pack massive cargo ships and bring care packages all around the world, would go to Pacific Islands, Virgin Islands, and drop off all these gifts for people. They used to be these type of people, right? Over time, the ego started to creep in. People didn't like their mindset. So what they did is they would shut it down. They would cancel it. And then it eventually got to a point where they started beheading people for thinking different. This has been repeated over and over and over in history. So we go from, you kind of understand like the spirit versus the ego. And this is like, it's a really, really broad, like large concept. But basically, people are, we go from gravitating towards the ego, like in materials, stuck in our emotions, no compassion, no love. We'll gravitate towards that age and stay in it for a couple of 100 years, and then it'll transition into compassion and then come back to ego. And this whole little teeter-totter thing keeps going back and forth. And so that's what the whole concept is that people don't change, time does. So it might be better to explain it as like, right now we're dealing with, a lot of people that are inside of their egos, and it's really hard for them to agree on anything. So we're constantly at each other's throats. It's exactly what happened in Confucius time. And it's just a cycle that just keeps getting repeated over and over and over. I don't know if I explained that well, but it's something along those lines.
For this specific example, for me, it makes sense. But then if I think on other things, it doesn't make sense. So I agree with, we've been battling with our ego and spirit. If you look at Asian civilizations as well, where we lived in harmony, and then there were times we didn't, and so it went back and forth. But if you look at technology, or if you look at diseases and death throughout the last couple hundred years, that is changing, because of the decisions we're making. So then people do change, though, of course, along with the time. So then I can also find specific examples of where it does happen. So for me, it's too general of a term to be true for everything. So that's more how I look into it. But
I see where it is now. Like I see where you're talking about. So basically the concept is based on thoughts, not materials, or that's why they say time changes, but people don't. It's how we think. It's specifically attacking the mind and how we think of things. So like disease or technology, for example, like we probably thought of the sword the exact same way as we think of the iPhone. Does that make sense? Like when the sword was first introduced, like they were like, holy shit, look at this thing. What is this? This is the craziest technology. I could hack people's heads off and cut trees and build houses and do all, like there's multiple uses for this thing. So that was the iPhone for them. And that's the whole concept behind it, is like our minds are adolescent. We're a species of amnesia. And we stay young in our minds. Like when you get, eventually you're going to hit 6 years old, you're going to still feel like you're 6. Like the minds don't, it's like, I don't feel like I'm 60, like upstairs. The body does, but the mind doesn't. And so that's why, like, I agree with the concept so much, is that it's the way we think of things. So if you were to try to imagine like how a person would be in their ego back then and emotions, it's very similar to today, just with different times.
But if you look at it on a micro level, like you and I were not the same persons 5 years ago than we are now. That's not because, of course, time changed as well, but it's also because our thoughts have changed over those 5 years, because we have experience, we've learned, we fell flat on our face, we get back up. So then we did change, and our thoughts did change, right? So on a more micro level.
Yeah, like that's where I conflict with this concept as well, because I'm like, well, that's crap, because I've completely taken a 180 in my life, right? And that's when the concept gets to a more broad spectrum. It's like the micro level, I think that there's definitely people that change. And they completely change the genetic makeup of their mind as well. There's people out there that do this. I know I'm one of them, but the mass majority doesn't. And that's at least that concept. I don't know if I really broke it down the best way it could be explained, but like I think that like you're right in a sense, especially when you describe it like that. The only rebuttal I would have against that would be like my experiences. So I've really dove into my ego, man, and tried to kill most of it. And there's still a large part of it that's inside of me that I just keep at bay. So like I've changed myself for sure, but a lot of it's me still fighting my old self. So it's still there. There's still a big piece of me that's there. You know what I mean?
Yeah. And do you have a video of this philosopher, of this concept? Maybe we can, look into it and discuss it another time again. If I know a bit more of it. If you could send it through after the podcast, I don't know. We can hold this topic for next time. Maybe that will be cool.
Absolutely, most definitely. I think it's a very important topic. It's super interesting. I obviously need to dive into it a little more so I could get a little better at explaining it. If I remember correctly, I heard it on a Rogan podcast. So I'd have to like go and figure it out. But what I'll try to do is at least get a link to that podcast. We could link it onto this if people are more interested in the subject. And then also you and I will cover it a little later.
That's cool. And you were talking about the ego right now, and actually that might be a cool topic for a whole podcast. So podcast number 11, we're gonna go and dive into the ego because it's an interesting things.
I would love. I mean, we could breeze over it briefly if you'd like. The ego to me is like I could go on and on and on about it. Like I really dove deep into it because ego shapes societies. Ego, it dictates how things go, as a whole. And I didn't even know this. Like I didn't even know any, but I don't know if a lot of people really understand what the ego is like in its entirety. Like we have a general consensus of like, obviously it's going to be the thing that makes you overconfident and, somewhat cocky, but it's also the thing that does the opposite to you, makes you depressed and gives you anxiety. It's like everything.
And the definition of ego is basically self. So there's a split in the way we use the word ego. If you look at astrology as well, and you have your sun sign, I'm a Capricorn. Like your ego sign is Capricorn. So the definition, if you look it up, it's self. But the thing we're going to be discussing is more the way you look to yourself instead of yourself as a being.
Yeah, because I think the ego really it's two people. It's two of you. It's the two people. It's the good and bad. It's the angel and the devil.
Mm.
And to me, like the ego would be more of the devil side of it, but it's the voice in your head. It's the thing that's constantly. I like to say this a lot. It sabotages you. It'll tell you. I'll just use like a real basic concept, but it'll be that thing like, oh, today's gonna be a good day. Today's gonna be a good day, but it's not. Like you got all this shit going on. That's like it could be a funeral or something like that, and you've just been dealing with so much, and it's been heavy on your mind. So you're like, I got to think positive today. So I'm gonna just tell myself it's gonna be a good day. It's gonna be a good day. You get up, you go through your day, and it sucked. You come home, the ego's be like, I told you it wasn't good. I told you it wasn't gonna be good. Why'd you say it was gonna be good? So it does this. It sabotages you in everything. It's tell you gonna be a good day, then it tells you why. It tells you it shouldn't. Yeah. And it loves to do that. It loves to turn on you and mess with your head. And like, that's the whole thing that I realized about the ego is it's kind of here to sabotage us in almost every situation. And if you learn that about yourself, you start to realize like, oh, I could stop that dead in its tracks and not allow it to do that anymore.
It's a cool how you break that down. And for the people at home, if you're more interested in this topic, we're going to go in depth on in the next podcast instead of briefly. So see you guys next time then.
Yep, absolutely.
All right, cool. Thanks for. Yeah, sure.
Okay, we will do that, folks. Thanks for listening.
Thanks for watching.
Thank you.
And until next time.
Yes, sir.